Living at anchor is the best part of being on a boat. Sailing in open water, arriving in a bay, dropping anchor, and waking up in the morning to the sound of the sea against the hull, with the sun rising and painting everything pink and gold, these are feelings that anyone who has experienced them will never forget. For sure, I absolutely love being at anchor and everything that comes with it. In this episode, we'll look together at the pros and cons of living on a boat at anchor and how you can fully enjoy this experience with a few helpful tips. This past year, partly due to the unique times we're all experiencing, I managed to stay at anchor from June all the way through August, which is when I'm recording this video. During these 3 months, we went swimming, took care of the boat, had fun underwater, worked, fished, and did many other things. This is true as long as the weather stays stable. All right, let's get started right away with the first tip. I'll talk in detail about how to anchor in a bay in the next video, so consider this a little preview. Relying on your experience and even just on the plotter, which must always have up-to-date charts, since both bays and ports can be affected by silting, try to find the most sheltered spot from the winds so you can safely remain at anchor. There's nothing more annoying than swinging on the anchor chain at night as if you were sailing upwind, just because you chose the wrong place to anchor. So look for a spot that's sheltered from the prevailing winds in the area where you're sailing. If you decide to spend most of your time at anchor, and especially if you plan to use electronic devices extensively for work, you'll need to be self-sufficient. This means you'll need to generate clean energy by taking advantage of resources like the sun, wind, and currents. Solar panels are perfect for the Mediterranean and other very sunny areas, but they become less and less efficient in places where there's little sunlight. For this reason, the ideal combination is solar and wind power. However, keep in mind that turbines must be designed specifically for marine use, not only because of weight, but also for power output and the noise they produce during operation. Today, there are some water turbines available on the market that, once placed in the water, generate energy thanks to the currents. Of course, if your batteries are low, you can simply start the engine and recharge them using the alternator and the charge splitter. The same principle applies to water as it does to energy. The less you use, the better. In addition to having a desalinator or water maker, being self-sufficient also means not wasting water. If this is true on land, it is even more important on a boat. When you wash dishes at home, you don't really notice how much water you're using, but on a boat, it becomes immediately obvious. You can't use 100 liters of water to wash 4 plates in a pot, especially if you're planning to stay offshore for a long time. So how do we go about it? If you're at anchor and the water's clean, don't hesitate. Grab a basin, fill it with seawater, dip your dishes in, and wash them with a biodegradable detergent. Rinse them in seawater and then use the shower hose to give them a final rinse with fresh water. The shower. In the summer, taking a cold shower is refreshing, especially after a hot day. Jump into the sea, come back on board, lather up well, jump back in the water, and then rinse off with fresh water to remove the salt, and there you go, as clean as the dishes we talked about earlier. I'd also like to put in a good word for rainwater. Here on Gentilina, we use it to wash the boat and water the plants. If you have a proper filtration system, you can even dedicate 1 or 2 tanks to collecting this valuable resource. Make sure you have suitable containers on board for storing at least 50 liters of water in total. Bimini tops and spray hoods are essential, but once you're at anchor, setting up a nice sunshade over the boom is also a great idea. Always keep the portholes open to allow for better ventilation inside. Fans are excellent for increasing the airflow throughout the boat. Just make sure to choose a quality product. Otherwise, the noise and vibrations, much like with wind generators, will be comparable to a Boeing 767 taxiing. A good windsock at the bow helps capture the breeze, allowing the crew to sleep comfortably and stay cool. If the heat becomes truly unbearable and you're fortunate enough to have an air conditioning system on board, the best thing to do is simply turn it on, at least for a while. I believe humidity is the worst part of life at anchor, aside from sudden squalls, of course, when you're anchored in the summer. To help minimize this issue, you can keep the boat covered with the canopy even at night, but only if you are 100% certain that the weather will not worsen. Another tip I can offer in this situation is to avoid wetting the cockpit with salt water after sunset. To maintain a dry feeling in the cabins, I found that the only way is to cover the beds with a fleece blanket. It is extremely important to avoid going below deck while wet with seawater, and it is absolutely forbidden to sit on the beds or sofas with wet swimsuits. A small portable dehumidifier can help you maintain the right level of humidity in the cabins. The tender, along with the outboard motor, will be your main means of transportation, and as such, it must be cared for and maintained with the utmost attention. On this topic, I encourage you to watch the 2 Hinelson Academy videos on tender cleaning and outboard maintenance. At anchor, you can safely leave it floating at the stern. The only precaution, at least for the night, is to secure it to a cleat with 2 lines. You wouldn't believe how many tenders decide to set off for open sea in the middle of the night. A great idea is to have a courtesy light with automatic activation at the stern to make evening returns easier. Pam! The last piece of advice I want to give you applies not only at anchor. The boat must always be Pam, ready to move at any moment. Let me tell you a story. Not long ago, while I was at anchor with Gentilina, a thunderstorm system arrived from the opposite direction than everyone in the bay expected, and with gusts reaching 50 knots. The direction the wind was coming from was exactly the worst possible for entering the bay, east. As a result, I had to cut the spare anchor line with a knife, let out more chain, and maneuver the bow into the waves until the storm passed, all while surrounded by other boats in distress. 3 boats ran aground, anchors and chains were tangled, and there was significant damage to the hulls. It was my fault. I should have headed out to sea in time and avoided being caught in the middle of it. But unfortunately, things happen on a boat, and if only I had known has never saved anyone from their fate. Most important thing is to be well and to stay safe. Damage to boats can always be repaired. That being said, I noticed a huge amount of objects floating in the water. For this very reason, the deck must always be clear of loose items, and the same goes for the interior. Securing everything must be done properly so that the Pam boat is always ready to set off. This is a fundamental rule. I'll finish with a special tip, the most important extra advice for truly enjoying life at anchor. Get yourself a hammock. You can relax in the shade, and kids will have fun using it as a fort or a swing. And you, based on your experience, what advice would you like to share? I'm looking forward to your comments and opinions. Fair winds. Guys, we're not out in the middle of the ocean. We're at anchor. I don't know if you noticed, but the wind went from 0 to 40 knots. Right now, things are a bit like this, but we had a rough time because we were over there, and right next to us was Ian from the Monocle. We ended up damaging each other's boats a bit. We bumped here and there. Even the girls had to move. Many people tried to head out to open sea, but a lot of them crashed into each other. There are 2 boats. Those 2 over there are on the beach, and now they're trying to get that one off the beach as well. All in all, it was quite an experience. As always, remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications, and also follow us on our Facebook page. A warm greeting to all aspiring liveaboards, and see you next time with Hinelson Living on a Boat.